Hello students, welcome to Reader's Workshop. Today we're going to enjoy another Irish folktale by Tomie dePaola, but it's not just for fun. I want you to keep in mind what's the main idea and what's the moral of the story. So far, with our Irish folktales and Tomie dePaola, we've met a few mystical, magical creatures, right? We met leprechauns, and last time we met a puka. Today we're going to meet some giants. Finn McCool, the giant of Knockmany Hill. And there's that big giant on top of a hill. Wow, he's as big as the hill. By Tomie dePaola. Look, and there you can see a teeny tiny lamb on the bottom. And on the back, this is neat, on the back there are some kind of symbols that stand for things, like that must be like a horse, but they're also making a connection, I think, to some of the symbols and designs we saw on the dresses of the girls who were doing the Irish dancing last week in some of the videos and books that we looked at, right? So those are kind of geometric drawings and symbols that are connected with Ireland also. Okay, here we go. Finn McCool. Oh, and here we go. There's just a little page before the title page that has another one of those cool kind of drawings. Finn McCool, the giant of Knockmany Hill, retold and illustrated by Tomie dePaola. So it's an old folk tale, and he retold it. Oh, and there's some more little sheep along the bottom you can see. Oh, wow. So here's the first page, and there's, I think that must be a giant. Maybe that's his wife. And there are some, that's interesting. These are not little people. Look, they have little wings. I wonder if they are like fairies. Oh my gosh, and some of them are flying over here. Okay, let's get started. Oh, wait a minute. Sometimes in a book, it's really also good to look at the border to see what cool stuff you can see. Look at that, rabbits, horse, and again, drawn in that kind of symbolic kind of style with swirls. It's like kind of geometry in the picture. Okay, here we go. In olden times, when Ireland's glens and woods were still filled with fairies and leprechauns, giants too lived on that fair emerald isle. One of the finest of those big folk was Finn McCool, who was wed to the lovely great lass Una. They made their home on the top of Knockmany Hill. Oh, so it looks like she's doing some work at home, like with wool, spinning maybe, and it looks like he's off doing some work with big rocks. Now, as any good giant, Finn McCool had his work to do, so he was often away from home. Lovely Una didn't seem to mind, for there was plenty to keep her own hands busy, spinning, knitting, and even giving a pretty touch to their great house. Life was very pleasant indeed. One morning, when Finn McCool was busy working with his kin, building a causeway to Scotland, the word came that Cuchulainn was coming. So the word kin means family, so he's working with his family, and causeway is kind of like a bridge. And look, it's so cute in this picture. Look at the real animals. Look how tiny the cat and the goat, and the goats are compared to the giants. Isn't that cute? Okay, so who's Cuchulainn? Let's find out. Ooh, he looks like a meanie. Cuchulainn was a giant too, and without a doubt, the strongest in that part of the world. When he walked, the very earth trembled, and with one blow of his fist, he had flattened a thunderbolt, so it looked like a pancake. He was so proud of that feat that he kept the thunderbolt in his pocket to show all just how strong he was. Every giant in Ireland had been given a good beating by Cuchulainn. Every giant, that is, except Finn McCool. And Cuchulainn swore by the green that he would never rest, day or night, winter or summer, until Finn McCool was added to his list. Oh my gosh, what a bully. He just likes to go around beating people up. But he hasn't had Finn McCool yet. So far, Finn had been smart enough. He kept moving about whenever he heard that Cucullin was in the neighborhood, but this time Cucullin was sure to get him. So Finn left the causeway and sped off for Knockmany Hill, his house and his darling Una. "Finn, me love," said Una, greeting him at the door, "what brings you home so early from your work?" "The chance to get a sight of you, my sweet thing," said Finn. Since he was as honest as the summer day is long, he added, "And to keep out of the way of Cucullin. He's after me." And look, there's also some little fairies. Oh, he looks sad and worried. Una soothed her husband. She brought him slippers and lit a pipe for him. She stirred up the peat fire so it would be cozy. Then she set down a huge mug of stout and cut a gigantic slab of soda bread for her dearie. "Finn, husband of mine, enough is enough," said Una as gently as she could. "For years you've been hiking around from one place to another to avoid this Cucullin. Why, you even built your house high on this windiest of hills so you'd be able to spy him coming. You'll not get a moment's rest until you stand fast and face him." "Aye, I'll be getting plenty of rest if I stand fast and he knocks me down. I don't have the heart to face a man who can make a young earthquake just with his walk, and who carries around a flattened thunderbolt in his pocket just to prove his strength." At that, Knockmany Hill gave a little dance. "He's coming," said Finn, his face turning a fine shade of pale green. Una then worked a charm the fairies had taught her. Oh, she can do magic. She took 9 woolen threads, each a different color, and braided them into the braids. She put one around her right arm, one circling her heart, and the third around her right ankle. Now, nothing she did could fail. So she made a little magic spell to help her plan. Next, she sent around to all the neighbors to borrow 1 and 20 iron frying pans. She hid them in 1 and 20 loaves of bread. That means 120, right? That she baked on the fire in the usual way. She set them in the cupboard with some bread she had baked the day before. She then took a pot of milk and made it into a fresh wet cheese and put it along with some white stones at the foot of the cradle she had made up. "Now, my darling," she said, handing Finn some baby clothes, "put these on and do everything just as I'm about to tell you. And remember," she said at the last, "Cucullin's strength lies in the brass finger he has on his right hand. Now quick, into the cradle, because I hear that man mountain at the door." Okay, so let's get it straight. She baked some real bread and she put that in the cupboard. And then she also made some real cheese, but then she also got some white rocks that she put next to the crib, and she's telling Finn to pretend he's a baby. Let's see what happens. "All right, woman," bellowed the giant at the door. "Where's that coward Finn McCool that I've been chasing after all this time?" "Well, well," said Una with her sweetest smile. "Now, isn't that a shame? Finn was off working on the causeway when some important family affair called him away, but he'll be home by tea time, so why don't you just come right in and sit down?" Poor Finn trembled in the cradle. And look at all the fairies hiding. The fairies and the sheep are hiding. Oh, and the cat too, hiding under the cradle. Oh, and there's those white rocks. "See this?" Cucullin said, pulling what looked like a pancake out of his pocket. "This was a thunderbolt until I caught it and flattened it. And that's what I'm going to do to Finn McCool too." "Tisk, tisk," said Una. "That may not be as easy as you think. Finn McCool's a big broth of a man. Why, take a look at our little baby, and you might be getting an idea of the strength and breadth of Finn himself." Cucullin peeked in the cradle. "Chirrup," said the huge baby, looking back at him. "My," said Cucullin. "What a big boy!" "While you're waiting, why not have a bite to eat?" said Una. She put some loaves of bread on the table, along with a can or two of butter and a pile of cabbages. Oh, look at all the food he's going to eat. Cucullin, who was as much a glutton as he was a bully, popped a loaf into his mouth and took a huge bite, right down on one of the frying pans. Clang! Oh, she baked the pans into the bread. "Yow!" shouted Cucullin. "What kind of devil's bread is this? Here are two of me teeth out." "Oh, that's Finn's bread, the only kind he eats," said Una. "Is it a bit too tough for you?" "Too tough for me?" shouted Cucullin. "I should say not. Just give me another." Cucullin chomped into another loaf and into another frying pan. "Oh, I'll not have a tooth left in my mouth, woman." "There's two more out." Cucullin hollered even louder. The baby began to holler too. "Hungry, hungry, hungry." "Ah, sweet dumpling," said Una, and she handed baby Finn a loaf. And because there was no frying pan in it, Finn ate it right down. "More," said the baby, and he gobbled up another loaf. He seems a strong lad," said Cucullin, getting a little worried. If this was the baby, the father must indeed be a bit stronger than Cucullin thought. "Ah, yes," said Una, beaming. "Why, instead of dollies, he loves to play with those white stones there in his cradle. Show the nice man, baby dear." Finn did as he was told. He picked up a stone that was really the cheese and squeezed all the water out of it and popped it into his mouth and ate it down. Cucullin was not to be outdone by a baby. He grabbed a stone and squeezed. He squeezed and squeezed, squeeze as he might. He couldn't get one drop of water out of it. He popped it into his mouth, and with a chomp, there went the rest of his teeth. The howl that came out of him almost broke all the windows. When he finally calmed down, Cucullin said to Una, "What kind of teeth does that lad have? They must be made of iron. Let me see your choppers, baby." At that, baby Finn opened wide his mouth, and Cucullin stuck in his brass finger, the very brass finger that was the secret of his strength. With a strong bite, Finn McCool bit the brass finger right off. Then up Finn leapt and began to pound the daylights out of poor weak Cucullin. That was that. Out the door went Cucullin, never to bother anyone, let alone Finn McCool again. "Tea's ready, my love," said Una, and Finn McCool sat down with the best giant wife in the whole world, and they lived a long, happy life. The end. So isn't that a fun story, right? About how Una helped Finn, her husband, outsmart that mean old bully of a giant, Cucullin. So we got to go back and do something. And I'll tell you, one of the funnest things and cutest things in this book are all the little fairies that are here and there on almost every page. And also the little animals. So like here, when Cucullin is being kind of scary, there you can see the little cat with its tail up like, right? And on other pages you can see the fairies, like where Cucullin is screaming and shouting. There's the little fairies covering their ears. And on the last page, when they're living happily ever after, you can see the fun little fairies just sitting close by on the table. And the little cat too. Isn't that lovely? So that wasn't just for fun, right? In a minute, we're going to talk about what was the main idea, kind of what happened, beginning, middle, end through the story, and what do you think the lesson or moral of the story is. See you in a minute.